Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video and another plug side chat. Wanted to talk about something here. A lot of people have suggested, based on watching my travels and seeing how much I drive, that I should have gotten a Tesla Model 3. I just wanted to take a few minutes to explain why I didn't buy a Tesla Model 3 and why I won't do so for the time being. So first, let me say that right now, actually for my needs, and I think for many people's needs, the Tesla Model 3 is probably the best electric vehicle you can buy at the moment. It's got almost everything right within the constraints of current technology. It's highly efficient. It has a 1.6C charging rate, which essentially means that you're charging at 1.6 times the capacity of the battery for its peak charging. So a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack in the Model 3 charges at about 120 kilowatts. And that actually might not be the constraint of the car. That could actually be the constraint of the supercharger technology currently. So it charges fast, it's highly efficient, it has a decent amount of range, power, all of the amenities that basically you would expect in a car. So it's very good on those terms. And for my regular 500-mile trip, because I typically take about a 45-minute dinner break and plus the refueling, a Model 3 long range would take me about the same amount of time as I typically take when I'm driving my Volt, which is, a gas-powered electric range extender. However, in the Bolt EV, it's about a 45-minute, maybe an hour penalty beyond that. It seems like it would be a no-brainer to switch over to something like the Tesla Model 3. And I agree, it would be better for that specific purpose where I'm currently driving my Bolt EV. However, there are a few reasons why, like I said, I have no intention of buying a Model 3 at the moment. Right now, you can't get a Model 3 unless you buy it with the premium upgrades. I'm not really interested in most of the things that come in the premium upgrade package. I would much rather pocket that $5,000 or so and use it for other things. The other problem with it is, and again, this is something that I think surprises some people, but I've mentioned it before, I don't like the charging standard. It's a principled resistance for two reasons. One, I don't like what Tesla is doing trying to maintain a walled garden. People can say what they want about the public charging infrastructure not being as good or as robust as the superchargers, but that's changing very rapidly. And that Tesla standard is dated. Now, I know Elon has said he's going to be bringing out the version 3 of the supercharger and it's going to be great and it's going to be wonderful. But that just tells me that he's doubling down on wanting to keep the current Tesla supercharger infrastructure private. And this is where that sort of principled stance comes in. I think it's doing a huge amount of damage to electric vehicle adoption. In the beginning, I think that was a pragmatic approach for Tesla. Nobody else was offering those charging rates. Nobody else was getting on board with long-range electric vehicles. It was pragmatic then. Starting about 2 years ago, when we started to see vehicles like the Bolt EV and hints at other faster charging, newer electric vehicles coming out, we see that the CCS standard is capable of handling more power than the Tesla standard. At that point, holding on to the Tesla standard was a bit of pride. I think now that we're seeing how rapidly the public charging infrastructure is being built out, you have Ionity in Europe, you have Electrify America in the United States, and a lot of other charging providers in the United States. I think at this point, it's holding on to that Tesla standard and keeping isolated and keeping your own private walled garden. I think it's going from being prideful to now being stupid. And I just simply don't agree with it. I think that Tesla just needs to swallow their pride. The supercharger infrastructure right now, they're already sort of seeing the backlash and repercussions because I don't think it's going to ever be possible for Tesla to build out a network on their own that handles the surges. And they shouldn't have to do it on their own. And that's why there's billions of dollars being put into the public charging infrastructure, which, if Tesla were to adopt the new CCS standard, they could participate in as well. And it would be as simple as, because their current supercharger model shares a cabinet between two stalls, like what they're doing in Europe. One of them a CCS2 head, one of them a standard Tesla head, but then they can go from upping the power that's currently restricted to somewhere between 120 kilowatts and 145 kilowatts. Well, they can pump it up to 200, 300, 400 kilowatts if they wanted to. They'd still have to restrict the Tesla head to 120 kilowatts, but that means that you could have two vehicles parked right next to each other, sharing the same cabinet at a supercharger, charging at their fastest rate. I think that is important, but again, it couldn't happen, or it shouldn't happen, in my opinion, unless Tesla was also offering to become a public charging provider, which means that they're also inviting other non-Tesla EV owners to participate in their network, pay into it, buy power from them. They create this huge competitive market now for public charging, and the goodwill and the charging support, all of it would do more, in my opinion, to push EV adoption than anything else that they could do. I mean, it would be a really wonderful thing if in a year you saw a Porsche Taycan parked next to a Tesla Model S, both charging in a supercharger stall somewhere, right? Or likewise, seeing a Porsche Taycan and a Tesla Model 3 pulling up to a Porsche CCS charger, and both of them being able to charge at, a much faster rate even than what the superchargers are currently capable of outputting. And that's the other reason with the Model 3, people have checked out the charging port. It looks like it accepts over 400 amps through that socket, which is more, again, than the Tesla superchargers can currently output. And it would make sense. It's very likely that the battery chemistry in the Tesla Model 3 could support up to 2C charging, which would mean that a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack could charge at about 150 to maybe 160 kilowatts. Well, the superchargers can't do that right now. We already have public chargers that are open and available between Recargo, EVgo's about to open their 300 kilowatt site in Baker. They're about to activate those chargers. We have Electrify America clearly putting in between 150 and 350 kilowatt chargers. Out in Europe, you have, again, the Ionity network using the tritium chargers that can put out close to 475 kilowatts. So even as a Model 3 owner, you would be inviting this switch over to CCS charging, because now all of a sudden you're increasing your charging rate by another 30%, 40% possibly, making it just a lot more convenient. And those surges, like what we saw at the superchargers during Thanksgiving, well, the distribution of the public charging network, it makes those surges less likely to happen, because you have just so many options beyond just this tight planned out supercharger network that you can bypass. Even when they were watching the Falcon Heavy launch a few months ago, and at the Buellton supercharger, I had friends with Teslas who couldn't actually access the supercharger for hours because there was such a backlog. And a lot of them were saying, well, heck, if I had a CHAdeMO adapter, I could have used one of the public chargers instead, and I wouldn't have had to wait around. It would have only been 50 kilowatts, but oh well. Well, now imagine if you had CCS and you're surrounded by dozens and dozens of CCS chargers in addition to the Tesla superchargers that you can't access because there's a surge. And again, the faster charging also means that those surges will subside faster, because instead of spending 20, 30, 40 minutes there, people might be spending 10 to 15 minutes. So anyway, those are the big reasons, right? I mean, I prefer a longer range Model 3, and I prefer it without the premium upgrade package, because I think that creates a better value. And I just don't like the charging standard. I think that it's a mistake for Tesla to continue to refuse their position as a potential public charging provider. And to me, so it's a bit of a principle in that regard as well. So I'd love to hear what you think. Is it and maybe I being too prideful and standing too strictly with my principles? Do I have incorrect expectations for Tesla? Is it fine that they continue to try and do their own thing and isolate themselves from the rest of the EV community and the public charging? Maybe that is your opinion. So I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. And thank you for watching.